Welcome back to Boring Gear Reviews. This week we've got the Echo Dream 2 from Death by Audio. So Death by Audio was founded in 2002 by Oliver Ackerman, and they're based out of Queens, New York. This isn't the first Death by Audio pedal we've done on this channel, and you can check out the other one right here. But as I kind of rambled on about in that episode was that their design and layout of pedals is super conducive to making you want to turn knobs. Tons of switches and, gauges and numbers and ticks and big knobs and big chunky pedals. It makes it super, super fun to play, and it's no exception with this pedal. So the Echo Dream 2 runs off of the PT2399 delay chip, which was like really commonly found in old karaoke machines. And while it is a digital delay, it has a very kind of warm, chewy analog feel. And what's really rad about this pedal, and any pedal that uses that chip, is that if you crank the time, like basically overclocking it, it introduces tons of like lo-fi artifacts. It really starts to break up and degrade, and you can get really amazing textures and kind of apply that to your sound in a way that you wouldn't normally do with a delay. Comment below your favorite type of delay. Are you like a digital delay person or an analog delay person? Let me know. For today's demo, I'm going to be using my 2013 Gibson Les Paul Traditional with Sunbear 59 PAFs. And as I tend to do, I will be going into my Universal Audio Apollo X6 and using the Softube JMP 2203 amp sim. Before we get going, I do want to say thank you to all of our new subscribers. It's been really exciting watching this channel grow, so thank you so much for joining. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you're already subscribed, I have a little present for you. That's for you. So obviously, my Echo Dream 2 looks a little different than the stock version. This is modded, so there's a feedback switch here that I can press and hold down to force it into self-oscillation. And then the bypass switch has been changed to like a soft click, momentary and latching, depending on, if I press it and hold, it's momentary, and if I press it, then it's latching. I love to mod my own pedals whenever I can. Like this feedback switch, but anytime I can't figure stuff out, I always send my stuff to a company called Memotronics out in New York. There's a link in the description below. So if you're interested in mods that you don't know how to do yourself, I highly suggest hitting them up. It's really great to work with. Okay, so for controls, we have a delay time, and this can go from basically no time at all, and then all the way up to a full second. Once you get past, 500 milliseconds, 600 milliseconds, then you're going to start to hear the artifacts and the kind of degrading of the delay signal. It doesn't affect your dry signal. Anything before that, you're just going to hear a very pretty clean, but very warm, not dark, just warm digital delay. It's super great. Then we have a feedback knob. It does exactly what you think it's going to do. Self-oscillation is usually like a bit past noon, but that will depend on the delay time. This switch right here is kind of like a wet-dry kill switch. So when it's in the up position, the delay level will work, like the mix knob, which is this one here. And then when it's down, it's going to be full wet, which is awesome for recording, but it's really cool to get completely unique sounds with it. We'll explore that here too. So in this middle section, like I said, we have the delay level or the mix knob here. So this next one is fuzz, and there's a preamp in here, and when you have it all the way off, there's no gain. And this will affect both your dry and delayed signal. And then the further you crank it up, the more distortion and fuzz you introduce. It's a really great sounding fuzz also. And then at the top, we have a master knob, and this controls the overall output of the pedal when it's on. I will say, if you have the fuzz completely off, you will need to crank the master volume all the way up. And then even then, I find that there's a slight volume dip. So usually if I'm running it as clean as possible, and it sounds completely clean, I'll put the fuzz, around, 2 or 3 notches up. It doesn't really introduce any distortion, but it just makes up for some of that slight volume loss. And then on the far right side of the pedal, you have your modulation. You have a speed and a depth control. They do exactly what you think. Speed controls the speed of the modulation, and depth, the depth of the modulation. What's also really fun is we get this switch to select the waveform of the modulation. So when it's in the up position, you have a very smooth up and down travel of the modulation. And when you flip it down, it's like a square wave, so very harsh. It'll go from, high modulation and then drop it all the way down to a low modulation. So in that sense, if you adjust the speed and depth in the right way, and it'll interact with the delay time as well, you can get kind of some pitch sequencing stuff. It's really, really great. All right, in this first clip, I am going to max out the fuzz, which means I'll back off the master a little bit. I'm going to set the delay time somewhere around 420, 500, somewhere in that range, with the feedback around 10 or 11 o'clock. I'm going to have the delay, the mix at that same time too, same level as well. The waveform, I'm going to be using the square wave, and then the speed around 9 and the depth around 10. This is not going to create like super exaggerated, pitch stuff, but you'll hear some interesting kind of crumbling of the delay signal, even though I'm not running it like a very high time, but just because I'm using that square wave, it does make a really cool effect. And I'm going to be pairing that with the Chase Bliss and Meris CXM 1978. I'm going to be using the Hall setting with a lot of pre-delay. So there's going to be a little bit of extra delay going on. You'll still be able to tell the difference, but it just adds a really great texture. And the only distortion in this clip is coming from the Echo Dream 2. All right, so for this next clip, I'm going to max the delay time. So this is where you're going to hear a ton of artifacts and, lo-fi vibey goodness, like just texture all over the place. I'm also going to be using the modulating section in the square wave form again, with a little greater depth, and also because the time is increased, like the time and the modulation are fairly interactive. So this is where you're going to hear all that big pitch sequencing up and down stuff. It's so, so nice. I'm going to have the fuzz at noon, the master all the way up, and then the delay mix or the delay level around 2 o'clock. And it's just this pedal. One thing that's really cool about this pedal is that it kind of creates a lot more going on than most delay pedals, I feel. Like, you know, most digital delays, they're just repeating what you're playing, which is cool. You can create a lot of cool stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily consider most digital delays like a texturing pedal. Like, it doesn't create any sort of extra texture. It's just creating some atmosphere or rhythmic instances because of the delay. But this will do all that plus just texture all over your face. It's great. Okay, in this next section, I'm going to be using it a little more traditionally. I'm still only using this pedal, no extra drive, reverb, nothing. But I'm going to have the delay time somewhere between 400 and 500, the feedback at around 10, the delay level around 10. I'm going to have the fuzz all the way up and the master around 2, and then no modulation at all. So much more like kind of straightforward delay. So one thing is, as I said on basically every demo I've done, I use low output pickups. So when I'm maxing the fuzz, it's not getting out of hand. It just sounds like a really awesome drive section, whether it's from an amp or another pedal. So, you know, if you're using higher gain pickups or you're running your amp hotter, you know, this fuzz will obviously interact with that more. But just so you understand, I play a completely clean amp with low output pickups. So that's, if you're curious why it's not overdriving like insane amounts, that's why. And what you'll hear is some of the dynamics of the drive section too, where in the first section, I'm going to be finger picking. And then when I use the pick, I'll dig in hard, and you'll see that it responds like you would want any sort of drive pedal or distortion on your amp to respond. It's not, the drive section in this pedal is not a novelty. It's definitely a really cool feature of this pedal that you can utilize. It's not a gimmick. It's definitely well thought out of and integrated into how you use this pedal. In this next clip, I'm going to be using the delay a little more traditionally. So I'm going to no fuzz, again, just like a slight bit to make up for the volume discrepancy. Master is max, the delay is around 1 or 2, feedback is around 10. I am going to max the delay time, and then I have like a little bit of modulation. So normally if I want, I think for the most part, when I use a delay, whether it's a digital delay or an analog delay, I like a little bit of modulation. I kind of want it to sound like maybe like a tape is getting like slightly stretched out or slightly slowed down here and there. And that's what this does really, really well. At this setting, the speed around 3, and then the depth, I don't know, just kind of barely on. You get this very slow moving, winding down and ramping up that I really love so much. It just gives a little bit of movement. At the front of the chain, I'm going to be using the Smallsound Bigsound Fuck Overdrive as just kind of like a light to mid gain, nothing too crazy. And once again, I'm going to be using the CXM 1978 just kind of like as a semi-large plate reverb. And in this context, you'll hear how even with the delay maxed and those kind of broken lo-fi artifacts happening, it doesn't interfere with your playing. Again, it's not a gimmick either. It's something you can use to create texture and just a totally unique vibe in your delay. So you're going to hear the repeats a full second apart, but you're also kind of buried underneath that. You'll hear some of that artifacting. It just adds so much dynamic and nuance to your sound that you wouldn't get otherwise if it was like very pristine. And there's nothing wrong with that either. This is just better. And finally, I'm going to use the Smallsound Bigsound Fuck again, same settings. And then the Echo Dream 2 I'm going to use with the dry kill engaged. So it's just the wet signal. And what I'm going to do is put the feedback slightly past noon. So it's always going to be on the verge of feedback or oscillation, but it's not quite going to get there. And then I'm going to drop the delay time around 100 milliseconds, give or take. Master is maxed, fuzz is at noon. The delay level doesn't matter in this case because we're using that wet only. And then just the tiniest bit of modulation. This sound is super rad. It kind of exists somewhere in like the oil can delay field where there's like this little bit of a metallic feel to it with a little bit of movement. It's super awesome. Because I am using just the wet signal, your playing will be affected by the time. So you kind of want to match the tempo of your playing to the time. Otherwise, you'll have like a great big delay between when you hit the strings and when you hear sound. This sound is super cool, very haunting. It sounds as if there's like a reverb going on just because of how tight that delay time is and how kind of long-ish, it's feeding back. Really, really gorgeous sound. I love it. And that will do it for the Echo Dream 2. I think it goes without saying that I really love this pedal. I featured it in other demos before. This lives on my pedal board. This is not a sponsored video. I bought this pedal and it's been on my pedal board for years. It's hard to find any reason not to constantly use it. One of my other favorite settings is like a slap back delay. It does that perfectly. I've done that on other videos here. So just know that, with Death by Audio stuff, you're getting very high quality, very interesting, kind of unique takes on pedals that everybody uses, but they definitely put their own spin on it, both aesthetically and, with the functionality and the actual tone that you're hearing. I love when pedals can take a concept like delay, which is pretty straightforward, and then add so much value and uniqueness to it, where you can explore a delay pedal, not just explore your playing with a delay, but the actual sound of the pedal, of the delay pedal as well. You can explore that too. It just makes it super fun and exciting to navigate through. So thank you guys so much again for joining, for subscribing, liking, for just being involved in the growth of this channel. It's so exciting and fun to do. And the fact that I get to interact with you guys and you guys give me such great feedback and we get to talk about gear in the comments and stuff like that is just like a massive bonus that I'm really, really happy about. So thank you. And that'll be that. So I will see you guys next week with another video. And until then, peace.